Hello and welcome to my channel where we are reading through the Holy Bible written by God. We are at Numbers 22. It's getting exciting now. It is titled Balak Summons Balaam or Balaam. Then the Israelites traveled to the plains of Moab and camped along the Jordan across from Jericho. Now Balak, son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites, and Moab was terrified because there were so many people. Indeed, Moab was filled with dread because of the Israelites. The Moabites said to the elders of Midian, "This horde is going to lick up everything around us, as an ox licks up the grass of the field." So Balak, son of Zippor, who was king of Moab at that time, sent messengers to summon Balaam or Balaam, son of Beor, who was at Pethor, near the Euphrates River, in his native land. Balak said, "A people has come out of Egypt. They cover the face of the land and have settled next to me. Now come and put a curse on these people, because they are too powerful for me. Perhaps then I will be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land. For I know that whoever you bless is blessed, and whoever you curse is cursed." The elders of Moab and Midian left, taking with them the fee for divination. When they came to Balaam or Balaam, they told him what Balak had said. So Balaam or Balaam, he's a diviner. "Spend the night here," Balaam or Balaam said to them, "and I will report back to you with the answer the Lord gives me." So Balaam or Balaam, he knows the Lord. So the Moabite officials stayed with him. God, that's the Creator, came to Balaam or Balaam and asked, "Who are these men with you?" Balaam or Balaam said to God, "Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab, sent me this message. A people that has come out of Egypt covers the face of the land. Now come and put a curse on them for me. Perhaps then I will be able to fight them and drive them away. But God said to Balaam or Balaam, "Do not go with them. You must not put a curse on those people, because they are blessed." The next morning, Balaam or Balaam got up and said to Balak's officials, "Go back to your own country, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you." So the Moabite officials returned to Balak and said, "Balaam or Balaam refused to come with us." Then Balak sent other officials, more numerous and more distinguished than the first. They came to Balaam or Balaam and said, "This is what Balak, son of Zippor, says. Do not let anything keep you from coming to me, because I will reward you handsomely and do whatever you say. Come and put a curse on these people for me." But Balaam or Balaam answered them, "Even if Balak gave me all the silver and gold in his palace, I could not do anything great or small to go beyond the command of the Lord my God." He calls him the Lord my God. That is Adonai Elohe. Now spend the night here, so that I can find out what else the Lord will tell me. That night God came to Balaam or Balaam and said, Since these men have come to summon you, go with them, but do only what I tell you. Let's just call him Balaam. Getting tired of Balaam or Balaam. Balaam's donkey. Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the Moabite officials. But God was very angry when he went. And the angel of the Lord, this is not a woman, this is a holy angel warrior. These are very powerful beings, like in the Avengers. They're as powerful as Thanos, maybe even more powerful. Maybe they are as powerful as those celestial guys. They're holy angel warriors. They're called Kadosh Malakim. They might even be more powerful than the celestials. They could be as powerful as this character called Eternity in the comic books. Just one of them is as powerful as Eternity. And the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. Balaam was riding on his donkey, and his 2 servants were with him. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand, it turned off the road into a field. Balaam beat it to get it back on the road. So Balaam could not see the Kadosh Malakim, the angel of the Lord. Then the angel of the Lord, he stood in a narrow path through the vineyards with walls on both sides. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it pressed close to the wall, crushing Balaam's foot against it, so he beat the donkey again. Then the angel of the Lord moved on ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no room to turn, either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it lay down under Balaam, and he was angry and beat it with his staff. So you have to remember, the donkey a donkey is, back then they did not have cars. So the donkey just went off the road and went into a field. And then there was a wall, and then it just started to run along the wall. So Balaam's foot was crushed, and finally the donkey just sat down. Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth, and it said to Balaam, the donkey, "What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times?" Balaam answered the donkey, "You have made a fool of me. You have made a fool of me. If only I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now." The donkey said to Balaam, "Am I not your own donkey, which you have always ridden? To this day have I been in the habit of doing this to you." No, he said. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes. So usually you cannot see Kadosh Malakim, these holy angel warriors, which makes me think, I thought everyone could see them. Or I thought many people could see ghosts. I knew a man who once almost died, and it's called something like a NDE. N, D as in dog, and E, the letter E. A near-death experience. People who have near-death experiences, they usually can see ghosts. They're like, hey, you ever see a Filipino lip point? It's like this. They might say, hey, you see that? That thing. You're like, which thing? Over there. So, spoiler alert. Remember, there's Joshua, son of Nun. Later, he will see a Kadosh Malakim, and he will tell, the Kadosh Malakim will tell Joshua to remove his shoes and kneel before him. So, not everyone can see them. You have to be good enough to see them. So, right here, we can see the animals. Although wild, they are pure souls in some regards. And although Balaam knew the Lord, I don't think he is as good as someone like Moses. The angel, he saw the angel of the Lord because the Lord opened his eyes up, gave him the ability to see the Kadosh Malakim standing in the road with a sword drawn, standing there with a sword. So he bowed low and fell face down. The angel of the Lord asked Balaam, why have you beaten your donkey these 3 times? Why? I have come here to oppose you because your path is a reckless one. Before me, the donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If it had not turned away, I would certainly have killed you by now, but I would have spared the donkey. Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, I have sinned. I did not realize you were standing in the road to oppose me. Now if you are displeased, I will go back. The angel of the Lord said to Balaam, go with the men, but speak only what I tell you. So Balaam went with Balak's officials. When Balak heard that Balaam was coming, he went out to meet Balaam at the Moabite town. So remember, this area is called Moab. It's a little confusing. There's Ammon and there's Moab. And earlier the Israel, they fought Amorites, and they fought Ammonites. And now it's this main lousy named Balak. He wants to meet Balaam at the Ammon border, at the edge of his territory. Balak said to Balaam, "Did I not send you an urgent summons? Did I not send you an urgent summons?" Who really talks like that anymore? "Why didn't you come to me? Am I really not able to reward you?" "Well, I have come to you now," Balaam replied, "but I can't say whatever I please. I must speak only what God puts in my mouth." Then Balaam went with Balak to Kiriath Huzoth. Balak sacrificed cattle and sheep and gave some to Balaam and the officials who were with him. The next morning, so we could see sacrificed in the non-Moses and Aaron way just means, you killed them so you could eat them. For example, if you own a lot of animals like cows, they're worth money, so you don't exactly want to kill them. You just oh, that's my they're worth a lot, so just you wait till they get you want to kill them when they're not too old. So here in verse 40, when he sacrifices, Balak's not doing it for sin, or he's not sacrificing it really for a priest. He's a diviner. So he gave some meat to Balaam and his officials who came back from persuading Balaam to meet with him. The next morning, Balak took Balaam up to Bamoth Baal, and from there he could see the outskirts of the Israelite camp. Let's go to Numbers 23. It's exciting. If God, the Lord, knows that Balak wants Balaam to do something for him, it could be something interesting. God will do something to Balak. He knows what's going on. He already got to Balaam first. Numbers 23. Balaam said, "Build me 7 altars here, and prepare 7 bulls and 7 rams." Oh, now we're talking about offerings, like the offering type sacrifices. 7 bulls and 7 rams for me. And remember, he's saying that God is controlling what he is saying, every word from his mouth, like he's a puppet. Like God is the ventriloquist, and Balaam is a dummy. Balak did as Balaam said, and the 2 of them offered a bull and a ram on each altar. Then Balaam said to Balak, "Stay here beside your offering while I go aside. Perhaps the Lord will come to meet with me. Whatever he reveals to me, I will tell you." Then he went off to a barren height. God met with him, and Balaam said, "I have prepared 7 altars, and on each altar I have offered a bull and a ram." The Lord, spoiler alert, the Lord, he is actually Jesus Christ before he came in the form of the God-man, born of a virgin. The Lord is God, the Son. The Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth and said, "Go back to Balak and give him this word. So he went back to him and found him standing beside his offering with all the Moabite officials. Then Balaam spoke his message. So a word is a message. He put a message in Balaam's mouth. Balak brought me from Aram, the king of Moab, from the eastern mountains. Come, he said, curse Jacob for me. Come, denounce Israel. How can I curse those whom God has not cursed? How can I denounce those whom the Lord has not denounced? From the rocky peaks I see them. From the heights I view them. I see a people who live apart and do not consider themselves one of the nations. Okay, I have to stop there. Nowadays, in modern day Israel, they consider themselves Jewish, and then they are not one of the nations who they call Goyim, Goyim. Goy, G-O-Y, or G-O-Y-I-M, Goyim, translates into the nations, but that's just any other country or ethnicity besides Israel, modern day Israel, and like Jewish people. But this is ancient Israel. So when they say Israel does not consider themselves one of the nations, remember, Israel is a group of people who are descended from Jacob, and then there's some other people who followed them from Egypt. And God accepted them as a group. Now they're almost there. They're right at the edge of what is called the promised land, the land promised to Abraham, they're talking about Jacob. Abraham is Jacob's grandfather. So this land was promised to Abraham, and then again it's promised to his son, Isaac, and promised to Isaac's son, Jacob. And remember, the people that left Egypt at the Exodus, the people that Moses is leading, he's leading them. They are descendants of Jacob. But this is ancient Israel. So these nations are the people they're trying to move out of here and that they're fighting. So, for example, we just mentioned the Ammonites. They're one of the nations. The Amorites, if you look back a couple chapters, the Amorites, they're one of the nations. So the Israelites do not consider themselves, like they're unlike these people in customs. Their language is probably a little different. Of course, they are very religious. They're probably cleaner. And they also, because God created this tabernacle, they must seem very different. When people see them, not only do they have tents, what is that gigantic tent in the middle of all of them, and there's barbecue pit, and there with the grill's big and bronze with 4 horns on it. And who's burning it? Wow, he's wearing fancy clothes. They must seem really different from these other guys. Who can count the dust of Jacob, or number even a fourth of Israel? So there were a lot of them, a lot of Israelites. Let me die the death of the righteous, and may my final end be like theirs. So they're considered righteous. And back then, we know what that word means, but back then they probably didn't really righteous. Oh, hey, Joe, what does righteous mean? And Balak said to Balaam, "What have you done to me? I brought you to curse my enemies, but you have done nothing but bless them." He answered, "Must I not speak what the Lord puts in my mouth?" Next section is titled Balaam's Second Message. Then Balak said to him, "Come with me to another place where you can see them. You will not see them all, but only the outskirts of their camp. And from there, curse them for me." So he took him to the field of Zophim on the top of Pisgah. And there he built 7 altars and offered a bull and a ram on each altar. Balaam said to Balak, "Stay here beside your offering, while I meet with him over there." The Lord met with Balaam and put a word in his mouth and said, "Go back to Balak and give him this word." So he went to him and found him standing beside his offering, again with the Moabite officials. Balak asked him, "What did the Lord say?" Then he spoke his message. "Arise, Balak, and listen. Hear me, son of Zippor. God is not human that he should lie, not a human being that he should change his mind. Does he speak and then not act? Does he promise and not fulfill?" So the answer to those questions is, the first one is no. Like when he says something, when he says he's going to do something, he does it 100%. Does he promise and not fulfill? The answer is, again, no. When God promises something, he will give you his promise. What he promised you. "I have received a command to bless. He has blessed, and I cannot change it." So maybe Balak doesn't know the details, but remember, I was mentioning that the Israelites, the ones that rule all of them, they are descended from Israel. Israel has 2 names, Israel and Jacob. So a guy named Jacob, his name is also Israel. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I just mentioned them. God promised them that they would have this land that they're marching into. They're almost there. So this is the word, the message that Balaam is saying to Balak, that I have received a command to bless. He has blessed. What he's saying is God has blessed the Israelites. That he could see it, because one of the promises to Abraham is, "I will make your descendants like the stars." Like there's so much dust on the ground, like the dust on the ground. And then Balaam's like, "Yeah, there's a ton of them, okay." He may have heard, because Balaam's sort of a genius, or he's a diviner. He's kind of like a prophet. He may have heard, like I hear things in this thing called the ether, or the air. And he's like, "I've heard things, There's supposed to be a lot of them." And I heard they left for like 400 years, and then they would come out with many possessions, and Balaam's looking at them. Oh, they really do have a lot of stuff. And look at those things. They're all gold. Ooh, they must have left silver. They must have left Egypt and plundered them, like I heard. And so, diviners are good with prophecy, or they might they have their word. They might call it divination. Or no misfortune. We're at verse 21. No misfortune is seen in Jacob, no misery observed in Israel. The Lord, their God, is with them. The shout of the king is among them. God brought them out of Egypt. They have the strength of a wild ox. There is no divination against Jacob, no evil omens against Israel. It will now be said of Jacob and of Israel, see what God has done. The people rise like a lioness. They rouse themselves like a lion. That does not rest. A lion that does not rest till it devours its prey and drinks the blood of its enemies. Then Balak said to Balaam, neither curse them at all, nor bless them at all. Balaam answered, did I not tell you I must do whatever the Lord says? Now, the title for the last section is Balaam's third message. Then Balak said to Balaam, come, let me take you to another place. This sounds familiar. Spoiler alert, you may have heard that Jesus was tempted in the desert. This kind of sounds like it. Yeah. It seems like Balaam was sort of being tempted by Balak. He calls him in, come, help me. And then he wants him to look at him and look at him at a different angle. And then finally he's saying, come, let me take you to another place. Perhaps it will please God to let you curse them for me from there. And Balak took Balaam to the top of Peor. Spoiler alert. There were, according the devil or Satan, talked to Jesus 3 times. And the first one, he told him to turn stones to bread. And in the second challenge, he told him to go to the top of like a temple and jump. And the last one, he took him supposedly to a high mountain and he showed him all the kingdoms of the world. And he said, I will give them to you, Jesus, the devil or Satan, if you will bow down to me. And he said, worship God only, worship the Lord only. And Balak took Balaam to the top of Peor, overlooking the wasteland. And Balaam said, build me 7 altars here, and prepare 7 bulls and 7 rams for me. Balak did as Balaam had said, and offered a bull and a ram on each altar. Let's look at Numbers 24. So it seems he did not have 14 animals. He had 2. Numbers 24. Now when Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, he did not resort to divination as at other times, but turned his face toward the wilderness. When Balaam looked out and saw Israel encamped tribe by tribe, the Spirit of God came on him, and he spoke his message. The prophecy of Balaam, son of Beor, the prophecy of one whose eye sees clearly. Okay, so that you have to remember, the Spirit of God came down and rested on him. Just imagine something went came on him, and he's all like, probably, because he's not that good. But I think you cannot prophesy, really. What's called prophesy, or be a prophet or speak prophetically without the Spirit of God. The true God, the Creator, God with a big G. Big G. The prophecy of Balaam, son of Beor, the prophecy of one whose eyes are now seeing clearly, the prophecy of one who hears the word of God, who sees a vision from the Almighty, and that's usually El Shaddai. Let's look at the note. Shaddai. Remember, El is God from a long time ago. El. Who falls prostrate and whose eyes are opened. How beautiful are your tents, Jacob, your dwelling places, Israel. Like valleys, they spread out, like gardens beside a river, like aloes planted by the Lord, like cedars. Remember that people actually mix it up. I think diviners are like mediums. That means they're empty inside. They're like hollow. And God can control them like puppets. But see, prophets, when they speak by the Spirit of the Lord, God sort of more works with them. You know, they are like filled with energy and power, you know, saying it by His Spirit. You know, I have a spirit, and He has a gigantically powerful spirit. And then it's like join with His Spirit, you know. He doesn't really he does, you know, God's very powerful. He can control a prophet, but see, when you're a diviner or medium, you know, more like a puppet, like a vessel, they say, you know, more like a vessel, more vessel-y. And prophets, they do it more naturally, you know. So God's nice, you know. When He likes you, it's more prophetic type, less the old like divining and mediumship. So it's arguable, but being a prophet might be newer and like better and cooler, and then being a diviner or medium is like older and lousier and lamer, you know. So like cedars beside the waters. Verse 7. Water will flow from their buckets. Their seed will have abundant water. Their king will be greater than Agag. Greater than Agag. Their kingdom will be exalted. God brought them out of Egypt. They have the strength of a wild ox. They devour hostile nations and break their bones in pieces. With their arrows, they pierce them. Like a lion, they crouch and lie down. Like a lioness, who dares to rouse them? May those who bless you be blessed, and those who curse you be cursed. So one thing about prophets, when God speaks what's called through them, or gives them a message, it's still God's message. This is going to happen, you know. Some of this might be new, like I haven't read any of this yet. It will happen. Just watch. When we read later on, a lot of this will actually become reality. Verse 10. Then Balak's anger burned against Balaam. He struck his hands together and said to him, I summoned you to curse my enemies, but you have blessed them these 3 times. Now leave at once and go home. I said I would reward you handsomely, but the Lord has kept you from being rewarded. Balaam answered Balak, Did I not tell the messengers you sent me, even if you gave me all your silver and gold, I could not do anything of my own accord, good or bad? That he couldn't do anything of his own, to go beyond the command of the Lord, and I must say only what the Lord says. Now I am going back to my people. But come, let me warn you of what this people will do to your people in days to come. Balaam's fourth message. Then he spoke his message, the prophecy of Balaam, son of Beor, the prophecy of one whose eye now sees clearly. The prophecy. Remember, he's a diviner. He's not a prophet. Earlier I said God got to him first, and he would control him like a puppet. So he's a diviner, but God's sort of promoting him temporarily, just maybe for a few hours, to, the level of a prophet. And then he'll just take away his spirit, probably. He'll probably just take away his spirit. Pretty soon, the prophecy of one who hears the words of God, who has knowledge from the Most High, who sees a vision from the Almighty, who falls prostrate, and whose eyes are opened. I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star will come out of Jacob. A scepter will rise out of Israel. He will crush the foreheads of Moab, the skulls of all the people of Sheth. Edom will be conquered. Seir, his enemy, will be conquered. But Israel will grow strong. A ruler will come out of Jacob and destroy the survivors of the city. Balaam's fifth message. Then Balaam saw Amalek and spoke his message. Amalek was first among the nations, but their end will be utter destruction. Balaam's sixth message. Then he saw the Kenites and spoke his message. Your dwelling place is secure. Your nest is set in a rock. Yet you Kenites will be destroyed when Ashur takes you captive. Balaam's seventh message. Then he spoke his message. Alas, who can live? Who can live when God does this? There's a note that says the people from the islands will gather from the north. Ships will come from the shores of Cyprus. They will subdue Ashur and Eber, but they too will come to ruin. Then Balaam got up and returned home, and Balak went his own way. Numbers. That was Numbers. So we went through all of those chapters. Thank you for listening. Remember, keep God first. He'll take your place.